Welcome back to exoticcarplayplace, everyone. Thanks for joining in on this beautiful sunny day. Today we finally got a little bit of sun and melted a bit of snow. And now that I've owned the 2018 Jaguar F-Type R for about a month, I find it fitting to share with you guys my overall driving impressions of this phenomenal sports car. Let's get into it now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with exoticcarplayplace, and today...
So without further ado, let's just give this thing a cold start and let's get going.
So rolling right along, you guys probably noticed that it was loud. Now that is the quiet mode on the exhaust, and as you've probably noticed by now, that seems like aftermarket, but it's not. In fact, the Jaguar F-Type R, as well as the S with the V6, also has an equivalently loud exhaust system. Now, of course, this being the R, which is the 550 horsepower supercharged V8 engine of 5-liter displacement, makes some of the best sounds in the business. There are no exhaust sounds anywhere stock from factory OEM that make a sound like you can get from these Jaguar F-Type Rs. Now, with all that said, you've got two modes with these exhaust systems. You can either leave it in default as you start the car up. It's typically in the comfort mode, if you will, and it's still loud enough to enjoy. However, if you really want to liven things up, you can activate, right down at the bottom here on the console, you can activate the dynamic mode, which does a few things. It makes the whole driving experience more aggressive, shifts faster, as well as the exhaust ramps up in terms of volume. If you don't want the full meal deal, you can also just activate the flappers on the exhaust system just by hitting this one button down here, which just opens up essentially the exhaust. Okay, so let's give this thing a little blast in the quiet mode. Whoa, that never gets old, I'm not gonna lie. That is one of the best sounding exhausts. Now with that said, that is the quiet mode. So again, there's a part 2 to this whole exhaust sound. Let's activate that now. So press the little button, and now we're going to get a little bit better exhaust sounds yet, if that wasn't enough for you. Let's hit it. Whoa! Whoa, hit the corners. She handles well in the corners. Whoa! Wow. Wow. This car has thrust. I am not gonna lie, I love that sound. Wow, is that a blast? Holy smokes. The numbers on this car, 0 to 60 mile per hour, rated at around 3.6 seconds, although I've heard of guys testing it as low as 3.1 seconds. Quarter mile, about 11.7. And top speed, well, who knows? It doesn't really matter when you're having this much fun. Well, I had driven this car a little bit here as well with the snow on the ground, and of course I can attest to hitting this other button down here. So you go either dynamic or you can go to the snowflake, and that gives you a little bit better grip and traction. Essentially the traction control and everything dumbs things back so that you're not as worried about the car constantly trying to spin out of control on icy and snowy roads. So I've tested that theory, it works fairly well. Fairly ho-hum technology, but hey, it keeps your butt between the lanes here when it gets slippery. The other thing is, of course, this is being an 8-speed automatic by ZF, it is a great transmission. So not only does this wonderful 8-speed ZF Auto really deliver the goods for just daily driving, if you want to just get behind the wheel and drive comfortably to work, the exhaust is, you know, it's still animalistic, which is just amazing. But really, it is slightly muted as well. The shifting is a lot softer and more progressive, and the whole transmission knows what you need to do. It seems to find the right shift points. It's very, very intuitive. So the transmission does a wonderful job of keeping the car moving down the road. Now, if you want to go hard, there's two ways. So you can either, in comfort mode, start pulling the levers, and that will just automatically allow you to start pulling levers and shifting at will, or you can shift the lever over, toggle it over to the side, and that locks it into sport mode, essentially preventing the transmission from putting it back into automatic mode at will. I mean, if you really want the spirited drive, say for example a track environment, that's the way to do it. So there's no question in my mind you're going to want to utilize that at times, but generally on the street you don't need it. Other people ask me, how does this compare to the AMG GTS and the GTRs? And without question, this car, in my opinion, looks better, sounds better, and honestly, for the most part, goes better, for the most part. Now, the AMGs are a wee bit lighter and they have a bit cleaner interior, although with that said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the interior in these Jags. It really is top shelf. There's lots to love about it. It's leather bound throughout from top to bottom and left to right, and it really is a comfortable place to sit and reside for long periods of time. Of course, in this car you have the 3 presets available for the power seats. You've got lots of different individual controls as you normally find them on a lot of the cars beside the seat, but here you find them on the door panel, which makes it far more intuitive, more accessible, and more obvious just to look at. So the ergonomics of this car are far superior to a lot of cars I've been driving recently. The only thing I would say, people have asked me as well, what is not great? There's only one thing that jumps out at me right now, and that are the heater controls. While they look clean and they're tidy looking here in the center of the dashboard, what I find is activating the heated seats is very difficult. When there's any sort of light coming into the cabin, you have to actually push the button in. It's very difficult to see. You almost have to put your hand, wrap it around the controls to actually see it properly. Otherwise, it's very kind of hidden. Now, the other thing I noticed driving along, I can be driving here at about 1200 RPM, and it has enough torque because of this 5-liter V8. You can just step into it, it either downshifts in anticipation, or it just delivers you off into this nice, strong rush of power that's just enough to elevate this car's speed to a point where, hey, you don't need much more, just in day-to-day traffic, of course, if you just need to get up to speed. Let's just do a first, second gear pull. Whoa, that's way too much power. That's, yeah, that's lethal. How about that sound though? Yeah, I just can't get enough of that, guys. So now just cruising along, we don't need to be going very fast to demonstrate this. So here we are, second gear. And I'm gonna just hold it lightly at a couple grand and then just let up. Let's try that again. Hold it at a couple grand, maybe 2,500, and just lightly let up. Whoa! One more time. So I guess what happens, what Jaguar decides to do is to simulate, to get some of those noises, it's actually engineered that way. And it's not electronics, not digital, but apparently they somehow inject a little bit of fuel, they delay a fuel injection into the exhaust system, and what that ends up doing is get these little backfires within the exhaust, because the hot exhaust comes out and you just give it a little shot of fuel and then it gives a little backfire, pop, pop, bang, bang. And so that's actually the trick, and that's the party trick, what Jaguar does to get some of those weird noises, a little pops and bangs and backfires, which is in fact the party trick. Okay, so enough about the great sounds and the blistering acceleration. Let's talk about the way this car handles and feels overall. Now, you don't need to take the car to the racetrack to get a sense of its stiffness and how it will actually drive on a track. Now, it's a good thing these newer cars have all-wheel drive, because I'll tell you, the first generation of the F-Type R came with rear-wheel drive, and with the same kind of horsepower, it was an unruly monster. You couldn't actually get a grip of the road. Even with the big 295s on the back, you just couldn't bite traction. This car was a menace. It was crazy. If you wanted to do those crazy smoke shows, this was a great car to do it with. But if you really wanted to be serious about it, this car could be outright dangerous and almost annoying in the sense that you couldn't put the power down. Now, Jaguar did some great things. After that first year and the first generation of the F-Type, they decided, you know, between the cars that are going into the rhubarbs and customers that are complaining about its overall lack of real drivability, they decided to add all-wheel drive. Now, normally I'm not the biggest advocate of all-wheel drive, because most car enthusiasts would agree that rear-wheel drive is the true way to go. But not anymore. That was only back in the day when all-wheel drive systems were heavy, clunky, mechanically connected, they heavily understeered, and they just didn't handle very well like a sports car should. In today's day and age, that doesn't happen. Electronically, now you've got basically a digital connection between the front and rear differential drive shafts, and essentially that makes the car a lot more functional and less intrusive when you really want to get down to sporting driving. But I'll tell you, this car does a great job of handling the corners. I've taken it on some great twisties here locally. Another thing that I might note is the steering is just about bang on. It is so sharp. Turn-in is almost instantaneous. There's a very slight delay on initial turn-in. Not quite as sharp as you'd find in a 911, but it's so close. You know, even on a track environment, you do very, very well with the steering setup in these cars. It does a great job of transmitting the bumps and the feedback as you hit the corners. Not only that, I would say the ride is a little bit on the firm side. Now, I personally like the firm ride. It does give you a sense of its sporting capabilities and its sporting intentions. It also lets you know that when you really want to get down to business, this car can handle it. It'll take you through the corners, it'll hold those corners, and it will do switchbacks through the cones and change directions at will. The handling is there. The ride is very, very stiff. It's compliant and actually does a great job of gobbling up a lot of the bumps. It's not harsh. You don't get that banging and knocking that you might find in like a Lamborghini or Ferrari when you hit those harsh bumps. This does chew them up pretty well. But with that said, it still is quite firm. And it actually does a very good job of transmitting some of that road noise and imperfections right through to the seat of your pants, as well as to the fingertips on the steering wheel. So, but that does show you its sporting intentions and does tell you a little bit about its overall capabilities on a track when you really want to wring this bad boy out. So at the end of the day, that's a big reason why I bought the Jaguar F-Type R. I drove it back to back with a 911 Carrera S, and the handling and the ride quality and all of that was very, very close, at least on the street environment. Not only that, you couple that with this has a way better sound and is actually faster than most Porsches, other than unless you step into a 911 Turbo S or a Turbo, then you've got real competition. But anything below that, this thing will dominate. This thing will annihilate it. And with the sound and the overall look of the car, I couldn't help but buy this beast. So guys, if you liked the video and if you actually liked my initial driving impressions of this Jaguar F-Type R, be sure to hit the subscribe button over there, as well as the notification bell. Lets you know when the next great video is out. Not only that, be sure to click over here. Check out my other vlog channel. There's gonna be lots more lifestyle information, lots more lifestyle living with this great car, as well as the Lamborghini. Hope to see you guys real soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.